Okay, open up your Bibles to Job chapter 20. Job chapter 20. I forgot to write up a slide with the points I wanted to have for each section. I'm going to keep blaming that on the time change. And I don't know how long I can use that excuse, but hopefully no more than this. Keep forgetting to get that done these last few weeks. I apologize for that. But now we are back to Zophar. He is up to speak again here in chapter 20, and he's insulted by some of the things that Job had said in the previous chapter we looked at last week. And so he's going to kind of retort about some of those things. He's got some comments he makes there in verses 12 through 19. He talks about how evil may be sweet, but it's also poisonous, and that in the end, iniquity is always unmasked for what it is. And we'll see, when we read through these things, sometimes when we're reading through the book of Job, you may get confused. I know sometimes I am, but when you're studying through it, I notice things, and he actually brings up some things. He doesn't say it outright, but it's kind of subtle, where he's using the language Job uses in his attacks against him. And it's almost a subtle way of him saying, look, Job, you're saying that God attacked you this way. Well, God, that's what he does to the wicked. And he's pointing those out. And I'll show you those as we work through the text. So let's start by reading verses 1 through 11. Then Zophar the Naamathite answered, "Therefore my disquieting thoughts make me respond, even because of my inward agitation. I listened to the reproof which insults me, and the spirit of my understanding makes me answer. Do you know this from old, from the establishment of man on earth, that the triumphing of the wicked is short, and the joy of the godless momentary? Though his loftiness reaches the heavens, and his head touches the clouds, he perishes forever like his refuse. Those who have seen him will say, 'Where is he?' He flies away like a dream, and they cannot find him. Even like a vision of the night, he is chased away. The eye which saw him sees him no longer, and his place no longer beholds him. His sons favor the poor, and his hands give back his wealth. His bones are full of his youthful vigor, but it lies down with him in the dust." So, as we said, the words that Job gave in the previous chapter excite some thoughts in his mind, he says, kind of some dismay. He's agitated. He feels compelled to respond to what he's saying. So right off the bat, when he makes that statement there in the first couple of verses, what's the first red flag that pops up in your head when you hear that? And before you answer that, let me remind you, or stir in your mind, why is Zophar and his friends, why are they there in the first place?
Well, hopefully to encourage Job. I think that that's why friends would come.
Yeah, they came, they sat for 7 days quiet because of the pain and anguish he was in. They want to help Job. Whether that help is getting him to believe something that's not true or not, they are there to help him. These opening words, what are they about? Are they to help Job or something else?
Well, it sounds like he's been insulted. He's acting like he's been insulted and is irritated with whatever.
How dare you sit there in your anguish and pain, the loss of your family and everything, and your own health, and insult me? That's what he's doing. That's exactly what's going on here. It's sad that that this is taking this place. And then there in verses 4 and 5. He kind of, in a graphic way, describes the transitory idea of the success of those who are wicked. This view is, of course, as always, that the wicked are punished in this life for their wickedness, and the righteous are blessed. So he throws out some rhetorical questions, and they imply that Job should deny the answer, and if he would deny the answer, then he would in effect be saying that he denies the oldest, most honored teaching of the wise. That's what he's hearkening back to. You know, Job. I mean, everyone knows this. Why don't you know it, Job? This is true if the The wicked are always punished in the here and now. And it also implies that if he denies the answer, he would in fact be saying that he denies the old, most honest teaching there are. And so the triumphing of the wicked is short. Was as old as the establishment of man on the earth. So he's saying that's the way it's been since Adam and Eve first walked the planet. And then verses 6 and 7, even though the wicked man prospers for a time, he eventually perishes, become like his own refuse. Like human waste, they return to the soil and they disappear. He's like, and I think verse 8 is interesting. Let me read that one again. He flies away like a dream, and they cannot find him. Even like a vision of the night, he is chased away. Now, who like a vision of the night, is chased away? Who's he referring to? It's the wicked. He's saying that's the wicked. That's his life. He's gone like a vision in the night. Why is that ironic? Zophar would bring that statement up. Do you remember? It's from his very first speech. Where did he get his wisdom? You remember? No? Well, that's what he thinks. He thinks it's from God, but he says he got it from a vision in a dream at night. And then he makes this statement here about the wicked person is gone as quick as a dream, as quick as a vision of the night. That's exactly what he claimed to have, and where he got all his wisdom. Verse 9 there, once the wicked man's gone, he's forgotten. Their deeds have a negative impact on their family. This evildoer will die prematurely. There in verse 11, he's talking about those bones with the youthful bones. He's talking about he will die, and all that youthful vigor he has will be in his bones, but what good are they? They're down there in the dust rotting. There is nothing good to come from his life. And then he gets there to verses 12 to 19. Starting in verse 12, though evil is sweet in his mouth, talking again about the wicked, and he hides it under his tongue, though he desires it, and will not let it go, but holds it in his mouth. Yet his food in his stomach is changed to the venom of cobras within him. He swallows riches, but will vomit them up. God will expel them from his belly. He sucks the poison of cobras. The viper's tongue slays him. He does not look at the streams, the rivers flowing with honey and curds. He returns what he has attained and cannot swallow it. As to the riches of his trading, he cannot even enjoy them. For he has oppressed the forsaken and forsaken the poor. He has seized a house which he has not built. Okay. What is the statement we hear from Zophar being stated again and again and again in these verses? What is it that he keeps repeating? Or really an idea that we find in every one of these verses? Or we mentioned it once. The wicked perish, right? The wicked perish. And that's what he was saying from the very beginning. The wicked are punished in the here and now, implying, Job, you're being punished because you must have sin. And he's stating it again and again and again. And he's trying to show examples from, what we see from people, that what the wicked do, and here's the punishments they receive. But what is he trying to do? Is he trying to convince Job of the way he thinks by creating illustrations? Would that convince you? If you disagreed with me on a particular topic and I decided, well, I want to illustrate this by saying, well, wicked people are just like people who would suck poison out of a cobra. They eat, and everything they eat and try to hold in their mouth, it turns to rot, and God causes them to vomit it up. Now, why don't you believe me? Why is he doing this? Go back to what he said in the very beginning. Is he in a calm state, reasonably presenting his argument to Job? Or is he agitated and insulted? Yeah. Now think back. Have you ever had anyone angry with you because you're not seeing it their way, and they begin to maybe yell, or they get agitated, and they get starting really fast, and they start saying things that's almost like gibberish? Have you ever had that happen? I've had that happen to me a lot. Oh, which, don't point fingers at people. I think that's what's going on here with Zophar. He's saying things that, I mean, yeah, I guess in general they're truths because, the wicked are going to receive punishment, if not in this life, in the next. But he's trying to make them absolutes, and he's throwing them out there as if they're going to convince Job, but that's not what he's trying to do. I think he's angry. He's upset that he won't just give in and accept everything he says. And so he goes through here. The wicked person finds the evil he does to be sweet in his mouth. He wants to hold it in, but it's venom of cobras. The wicked man amasses riches, but he's not going to be able to enjoy it. God's going to cause him to vomit all those things up. He will not be able to possess and enjoy the blessings of life. On and on and on. And then the wicked will receive their portion from God there in the last few verses. Verse 20. Because he knew no quiet within him. He does not retain anything he desires. Nothing remains for him to devour. Therefore, his prosperity does not endure. In the fullness of his plenty, he will be cramped. The hand of everyone who suffers will come against him. When he fills his belly, God will send his fierce anger on him, and he will rain it on him while he is eating. He may flee from the iron weapon, but the bronze bow will pierce him. It is drawn forth and comes out of his back, even the glittering point from his gall. Terrors come upon him. Complete darkness is held in reserve for his treasures. An unfanned fire will devour him. It will consume the survivor in his tent. The heavens will reveal his iniquity, and the earth will rise up against him. The increase of his house will depart. His possessions will flow away in the day of his anger. This is the wicked man's portion from God, even the heritage decreed to him by God. So, again, he starts off, he gorges himself with wealth of others to the point that nothing remains for him to devour. That's the wicked man. Though the wicked may escape one weapon, there's going to be another one. It's going to cause him a fatal wound. And this is where this is in verse 25, where he's got that language that echoes Job's earlier statement. In chapter 16, verse 13, Job said, his arrows, speaking of God, his arrows surround me. Without mercy, he splits my kidneys open. He pours out my gall on the ground. And then we look there at verse, was it 25? Yeah. It draws forth and comes out of his back, even the glittering point from his gall. Terrors come upon him, talking about the arrows being shot at him. I think that's a subtle way he's trying to say, that's God doing these things to you. And you're right about that, because you're wicked. And all you need to do is admit it. The wicked man will be utterly laid waste. Now, again, a lot of the things so far say, in general, yeah, these things are going to happen to the wicked in this life or the next. But he's saying these statements as if they were always true. And I think he's saying them out of anger, because what good is this going to do Job? None. A young man once approached Socrates, and he asked him if he would teach him the gift of oratory. And his request was then followed by an insistent stream of words until Socrates places his hand over the guy's mouth and he says, I'm going to have to charge you double fee. And the young man asks, well, why? Well, I will need to first teach you two sciences. I will need to teach you how to hold your tongue, and I need to teach you how to use it. And I think that applies to Zophar. He needs to learn to hold his tongue and learn how to use it. I mean, who of us have never said something we wish we could have taken back? We would have just thought it through a little better. And every time we do that, hopefully we remember those things and we change for the better. I've often prayed that to the Lord that I will live long enough to recognize my mistakes and have the time to correct them and make them right. And I know I've made them. I know you have too. We're always striving to be more like Christ. Zophar is not doing that. In James chapter 1, verse 19, he says, everyone must be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to anger. He's in that passage talking about our response to the Word of God. But I do think we can make an application to just about anything. Shouldn't we ought to be that way with anything? How would we rate our listening skills? How quick are we to listen to other people? How would we rate our thinking skills before we talk? Have you ever been in a discussion, maybe at school at Great Hearts, where you're in those classes where you have to have a lot of discussion and debate, and someone's up there talking, and you just can't wait to say something. And as soon as they're done, you just try to blurt it out. Have you done that and regretted it? Oh, yeah. I have too. And you're going to do it again. I've done it many times where I thought, boy, I got a great idea. I'm thinking about what I'm going to say because I heard what he said. And I'm thinking so hard about how I'm going to phrase this and look so smart. I'm not listening to what they're saying, and they're really answering my question. Okay, I'm too busy thinking about how I'm going to get them. As soon as I get the opportunity, I blurt it out there, and I look the fool. I need to be slow to speak, quick to hear. How would you rate your slow to anger? How would you rate your slow to anger? Maybe in dealing with your family, dealing with your friends, and responding to someone who shares a different viewpoint from you. Are you quick to hear? Quick to listen, slow to anger? I think we would all be closer to one another if we applied those three principles every time we came to talk to anybody. After looking at Zophar's two speeches, the first one in chapter 11, the second one here in chapter 20, I think it's evident he is not quick to hear, slow to speak, and definitely not slow to anger. And we realize after reading these, he was not an effective communicator. He's not wise. He's not caring. He's not there comforting his friend because he did not know how to use his tongue. He was not, as a proverb writer writes in chapter 18, a friend who sticks closer than a brother. That's not him. Nor did he bear Job's burdens, Galatians 6:2. And after reading that second speech, we know that his relationship with Job has most certainly gone downhill. Christianity is all about relationships, right? When we were immediately born into a relationship with our mom and dad, maybe even a relationship with our brothers and our sisters. How many of you brothers and sisters listen to one another? Or, you're right. Now, at least you're on. I appreciate your honesty. How many of you brothers and sisters are quick to hear, slow to speak when they're talking? Give them a chance to say their bit. I mean, even for us. I mean, I talked on the phone with my brothers still, and even at my age, there are times where usually it's my brother Jason. I'm like, okay, I want to get it to my 2 cents in, I get angry. Not so because I want to say it so bad, I feel like he's not giving me the opportunity, and so not only am I being slow to speak, but I'm not being slow to anger either, because I want to get it out. Are we like that still? We are. And so we need to practice that. If we struggle with that, we need to have that verse memorized from James: slow to speak, slow to listen, or quick to listen, and slow to anger. We need to apply that to every relationship we have. And if we think about it every day, we make a point to think about it before every conversation, you will be amazed how quick those relationships build up and grow. But we have to be consistent with it. We need to be thoughtful in our communication. And I think this is important because we're living in a day and age where we are not thoughtful in our communication. We don't see it from our leaders. Whether at the very top, we're not seeing it maybe in our workplace anymore. We're not doing it via email. We don't do it via text. We don't do it one-on-one as well anymore. It's getting worse and worse. It used to be where people would get together and they would communicate in almost in a debate fashion back in the old days. Alex often talked about how he wished we were debating the way we used to back in the 1800s when they would go to a lecture or go to a debate, how many hours, Alex, would those debates or those lectures or sermons last back in the 1800s? Was it 45 minutes? The ours are about 30 to 45 minutes. How long were they?
Your multiple days.
Yeah, they pulled Paul's 2 or 3 days. Alexander Campbell, I have a lot of his sermons written out that he had done, and for me, when I print out my sermons, they're about 5 or 6 pages. His are about 35 pages. That's one sermon from one guy, and people would stay and listen, and they would stay awake for the whole thing, and afterward they would have discussions about it, and they would be there all day. They were effective communicators. I look back and I read. Have you ever read the diaries or the journals of people who were considered in poverty back in the 1800s? They were eloquent speakers and writers, far better than we are, because they would stop and listen, and they would think before they talked. They gave great thought to what they were going to write down. And we don't do that anymore. And they did that because they read and studied the Bible. We need to become better communicators. We need to become more effective communicators.
More better, gooder.
Yeah, more better. Gooder. I'm not sure that's it. I was like, that was not the way I wanted to put that. Exactly. But exactly. What? I mean, I was hoping you would recognize I caught it before I said it. At least I caught it. Some people don't even catch it. They just throw it on out there. But we all need to work on it. I need to work on it, clearly. This is one of the reasons why whenever I have my lessons, I run them out word for word. Mainly because I don't want to say something wrong from the Scripture. Because I'm up there, I am speaking the utterances of God, and I want to get it right. And if I want to speak to somebody about the Word of God and try to bring them closer to the Lord, I better know what I'm talking about. I need to listen to know where they're at. One of the first things I do when I go to camp, for 4th through 6th grade camp, those first several days, I am watching and listening to everything. And I'm going to design my devotionals and my Bible classes to where they're at. Because they need to grow up some. They almost always need to grow up from where they're at. And I want them to see that. And that's why usually on Wednesdays and Thursdays and Fridays, the camp is so much better for them, because we're dealing with the problems. People don't deal with them anymore. They don't communicate them anymore. They don't help one another anymore. And that's where you and I need to come in. We need to not be like Zophar. We need to be more like Job. Be a thoughtful communicator. Quick to hear. Slow to speak. And slow to anger. I mean, if we do that in every relationship, our relationship would grow, and people would be coming to us, like the Queen of Sheba came to Solomon, looking for wise words. How many times do we hear from Tyler, I think Garrett, I think even Dick, where they would communicate in some of these debate classes at school where they were talking about the Bible, because they wanted to hear more about what they had to say. It wasn't so much that they thought, well, those guys know everything. They recognized they knew something that made the text make sense to them, and in a way that they never understood. They wanted to find out more, so they went to them. We need to have that same attitude. We can do that. We follow what we see there from Job, and we read out from James. We're going to close things down. Anybody got a comment or a question?